Everyone out to our Washington City Council meeting. We're here in the City Council chambers at City Hall. Today is Wednesday, April 12th, and our meetings are also streamed live, and you can follow them on our YouTube station, which is linked at washingtoncity.org/meetings. We are so grateful for the Interfaith Council, and tonight our invocation will be offered by Pastor Ia Jimenez from the New Life Christian Center. Pastor.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I've been a resident of Washington for 10 years. I absolutely love and adore the city, so it is a great privilege and blessing for me to be able to pray with all of you this evening. If you would all just join me in prayer. Heavenly Father, we come before you and thank you for blessing this incredible city. We thank you for your love, your goodness, your sovereignty, supremacy, and grace. Please quiet our hearts today in humility and gratitude that we may submit to the leading and guidance of your Holy Spirit. We thank you for the faithful and protective hand that you have upon our elected officials, businesses, churches, law enforcement, first responders, families, and individuals that make Washington the great city that it is. Thank you for their hearts to serve well, with pure hearts recognizing we are people made in your own image with dignity and priceless worth. Protect our youth from the onslaught of heaviness and confusion, and let your joy and victory protect them and raise them into this next generation of leaders. As we gather together here, we invite your presence, your wisdom, your favor, as our council deliberates over the items before them. May every decision be righteous and glorifying in your sight for the greatest good of all the people in this city. And may your spirit bring peace and unity in heart, mind, and purpose. May your spirit of truth and grace reign over this city. In Jesus' mighty name, amen.
It's a beautiful prayer. Thank you, Pastor Jimenez. And we are also glad that you live in Washington. I've invited my friend Rowdy Hinchman to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Rowdy.
Would you all please stand? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Rowdy. Council, as you look over the agenda, before I call for a motion to approve it, I will just make you aware that we do need to go to closed session for items 9A and 9B. And I would also recommend that we change the order on item 6, ordinances. I think it follows form better with the way that it was heard in Planning Commission, having 6B, the zone change for the residential portion, come before the zone change for the commercial. So I'd like to recommend that we approve the agenda with item 6B coming before item 6A.
Mayor, can we also pull item 5C from the consent agenda? That award it as it sits.
Yes, is that the final plat? And you had made notice of that. It looks like that hasn't been pulled.
No, they pulled the right one. I just want to make sure we get the right conditions on.
Oh, when we get there, yeah. Let's get to that consent, and there may be others too.
Okay. So Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve the agenda as outlined with the changing of the order of 6A and 6B.
I have a motion by Councilman Coates, second by Councilman Martinson. All in favor?
Aye.
The agenda is approved with minor modifications. A few announcements. On Tuesday, April 18th at 6 p.m., we'll have the Washington County Fair Parade. Prior to that, at 5:30 p.m., we'll have the ribbon cutting in front of the old school. And I think the spotlight city this year is Santa Clara. And as you know, the Utah League of Cities and Towns mid-year conference is April 19th through the 21st. I'd like to make everyone aware of Cotton Days that's coming up. The celebration, there's a variety of events, more numerous than I could go through here. But if you go to cottondays.org, or link to it from washingtoncity.org. You'll see the events that are going to be held from April 24th through April 30th. If I might suggest one event in particular, it would be the unveiling of the Melinda Covington statue on Monday the 24th. That'll be at 5:30 p.m. in front of the old school. And that there will be a really nice program and for the unveiling of that beautiful statue, much of which was fundraised and paid for by residents of the city with some contribution approved by this council.
Mayor, can we get those? I know there's a lot of events on Cotton Days coming up. Get those on our calendars.
Absolutely. Recorder, I'm sure you heard that and are happy to do that.
And the statue unveiling would be great. Thank you.
Absolutely. And then one more event. I know I usually just go through the next council meeting, but just to keep on your radar, the second annual Money Good Celebrity Flag Football Game will be held on April 28th at 6 p.m. at Crimson Cliffs High School. And while attendance is free, we are also encouraging donations to our Washington County Children's Justice Center. Council, is there anything else that I may have overlooked?
Yeah, we have the Sunrise Valley Park opening on Tuesday, April 25th at 6 p.m.
That's right.
And I think we are invited to the groundbreaking of the new Justice building. I got that today. I can't remember.
Yes, and I think Christy Pike's here. She's going to present a little bit more on that. But yeah, that's. I'm glad you mentioned that because the Sunrise Valley Park ribbon cutting is coming right up. So please record if you can put that on our calendars as well. Great. Anything else? Let's go on to item number 3, any declarations of abstentions and or conflicts? Seeing none, let's move on to item 4. And it's my pleasure to read this proclamation, especially in light of our recent visit to the Washington County Children's Justice Center. This is a proclamation titled Washington City Child Abuse Prevention Month Proclamation. Whereas April is National Child Abuse Prevention Month, a time to recommit to strengthening homes and giving every child a chance to succeed. And whereas Washington City joins businesses, government agencies, nonprofit organizations, and others across our nation in observing April as Child Abuse Prevention Month. And whereas children are vital to the current and future well-being of Washington City, the state of Utah, and this great nation and the world. And whereas our children are also some of the most vulnerable members of our society, and their protection is of the greatest importance. Therefore, addressing child abuse and neglect is an effort we all must undertake as a community. And whereas child abuse is a complex issue and ongoing in every community, including in Washington City, and whereas we publicly thank our community's parents, the Washington County Children's Justice Center, child care providers, doctors, nurses, police officers, social workers, teachers, therapists, and countless other professionals who selflessly care, serve, and protect. And whereas in Washington City and Washington County, the Washington County Children's Justice Center leads the collaborative efforts to protect each child, advance justice, promote healing, and educate our community. And whereas in 2022, the Washington County Children's Justice Center served 420 primary victims, conducted 283 forensic interviews, performed 142 medical exams, provided 1,214 hours of trauma-focused mental health care, and 114 primary victims were under 7 years old. Now, therefore, we commit to ensuring that every child grows up in a safe, nurturing environment that is free from abuse and neglect. I, Mayor Cress Staley, and the City Council of Washington City do hereby proclaim the month of April 2023 as Child Abuse Prevention Month in Washington City, Utah, and urge our citizens to join in preventing child abuse and providing ongoing support for survivors. Mayor, our council, I'd like to invite the director of the Children's Justice Center, Christy Pike, to come forward and share some thoughts and information with us. Afterwards, I'd like to get a picture of each of us with her. Christy.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. It is my privilege to be with you today, and I was so honored as we were able to host you at the Children's Justice Center recently. I love showing people our home for children who've been abused. A couple of things. You mentioned that we do have a groundbreaking coming up. We are expanding. We are creating a new space immediately adjacent to our current building where we'll be able to serve kids with medicals and with our mental health services. We're doing that in our current building, and we are just stepping all over each other. So the expansion, we're ready and we're excited about it. That groundbreaking is on the 26th, Wednesday at 10 a.m. and we would love to see you there. So thank you. I thought I might just share an interesting statistic that came across my desk with you that is local. So one of the things we do with kids is, and we talked about this, I believe, when you were with us, was we do a traumatic stress screener with kids after they've done an interview in our center. And we screen them for traumatic stress, and then we screen them for suicidality if it's appropriate. And the screener we used was developed by Safe and Healthy Families, which is a collaborative effort between the University of Utah Department of Pediatrics and Primary Children's Medical Center. And it is being, we piloted it here in Washington County, and there were a couple of other children's justice centers in Utah that helped pilot it. And it's now gaining traction actually throughout the country. But they sent us some statistics recently. Children at children's justice centers here in Utah, the 16 CJCs that use this screener, 1 in 2, so half, endorsed for high symptoms of traumatic stress. And they also use this screener in pediatric, just general population pediatric places in Utah. And that number is 1 in 20 with the general population. And so you see that the kids that we're seeing at children's justice centers really are, we're seeing the kids that are really at the highest risk for traumatic stress, for suicidality, and if those things are not buffered with some of the services that we know help kids, then that can lead to PTSD or suicide. So we are grateful to stand in that space, and we're thankful for your support. So thank you.
You do a wonderful job there, and we appreciate the service that you provide. We definitely need a picture.
Yes.
Chief Williams, will you join us?
Yes, and I should thank Chief Williams. He's on our advisory board, and your police department here in Washington City is awesome. They do a fabulous job.
Council, let's join Chief and Christy and get a picture.
I can't imagine traveling alone like that. Yeah.
That feels like the more important things of the evening, doesn't it? Make sure we're protecting our children. Thank you again. Okay, let's carry on with our meeting. Council, let's move on to our consent agenda. It is lengthy. The consent agenda is great. It helps us be efficient in our meetings. But if there are items that you'd like to remove before we approve the consent agenda for further discussion, I'm happy to have those removed. Just make me aware of that and indicate in that motion.
Mayor, I'd like to motion we move item 5C for some clarification questions.
Okay, 5C, anything else?
Mayor, 5EI, just for some information.
Great. Okay, Council, I will call for a motion to approve the agenda, withholding items 5C and 5E for further discussion and clarification.
Mayor, I move that we approve the consent agenda with withholding item 5C and 5I for further discussion.
Excuse me, I think I said that wrong. Excuse me, the final plat was 5D, Councilman? The final plat? Is that the one you wanted further discussion on?
No, 5C.
5C and 5E. We have a motion by Councilman Henderson,
Second.
second by Councilman Coates. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the consent agenda is approved. Let's move on to item 5C. This is a road dedication plat. 5CI is consideration to approve the road dedication plat for Highland Parkway, Taylor Road, Grapevine Crossing. Councilman Coates.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we put as a condition on this, the original conditions on the roadway to apply on this recording of this final plat that we had with this road improvement. The coloring of the black rock along the hillside, the landscaping requirements around the rim. I just want to make sure that those are all conditions. Whatever original conditions we had on this approval of this road as part of the Solis Phase 2, I want those to make sure that they are part of this condition.
Council, your thoughts on that?
Okay, I'll make
With that?
I agree.
We've had some discussion with Coalesce, and I know that they're planning on that, especially the coloring of the rock, and then we've had some discussion about the rim and Phase 2. So
I really like the idea to have that memorialized as conditions on this approval. I'm happy to entertain that motion, Councilman.
I'll make a motion that we approve the roadway dedication for the Highland Parkway, Taylor Road, Grapevine Crossing roads, with the condition that condition number 2. Well, Drew, should we say just the previous conditions that were part of the approval? Okay, so based on the previous conditions that were a part of the preliminary plat approval of the.
Well, it wasn't the preliminary. You did. Trying to remember what this was even under.
It was under a preliminary plat that we approved.
I don't think it was tied to it though.
Yeah, it was.
Was it? Okay, but yeah, well, whatever that particular thing, those things we'll put on there.
Restate that I'm going to make a motion that we approve the roadway dedication for Highland Parkway, Taylor Road, and Grapevine Crossing Road, roadway dedication with the additional conditions that were approved prior to the preliminary plat of the Solis Phase 2.
Great. I have a motion on the table.
Second.
I have a second by Councilman Martinson. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 5C is approved unanimously. Item 5E is a bid award. 5EI is consideration to award the bid for the 2023 Slurry Sill project to Morgan Pavement in the amount of $729,361.50. Councilman Ivey, you had some clarifying questions.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. Would like to get just an idea of what we see these prices doing, if the trend is continuing to trend upward or if they're leveling off. And then clarifying questions across the top on the second margin on the top. It goes across, says MS Asphalt, American Paving Preservation, then Asphalt Preservation, and then Maintenance. I guess what I'm wondering is, those may just be placeholders, but if there's a difference between preservation and maintenance, the bid that we will award tonight was for maintenance. Just want to make sure that I know what we're paying for there.
Questions? Andy, are you prepared to respond to that? Andy Stevens, our Assistant Public Works Director over streets.
Yeah, Councilman Ivy, so the top line is the name of the company. So some of them are preservation, some of them are maintenance. That's just the name of the companies that bid. And then the prices are a little bit higher this year than what we've seen in the past, but they're on pace with everyone else in the surrounding communities. $1.50 a yard is what St. George is paying, Ivans and Santa Clara.
What's the trend? Is the trend still going up?
It's up. We paid $1.15 last year a yard. It's $1.50 this year.
So you consider that the trend's going to continue to go up, or is it?
No, I don't think so. So last year we opened our bids early and we got a good price. St. George paid $1.50 last year, and we just got in early enough. I think that we got the lower prices on the oil. But I think, so $1.50 is where it's at. The last 2 years, we just got a better price last year.
And it's far better for our city to contract with these slurry cell companies rather than to try to do it ourselves.
Yeah, we don't have the equipment to do it.
Right. It would be a lot of infrastructure, a lot of costs.
Right.
That answers my questions, Mayor.
Thank you, Andy. Okay, so the item is to award the bid for the 2023 slurry cell project to Morgan Pavement in the amount of $729,361.50. I'd be happy to hear a motion on that item.
Mayor, I'll motion approval.
Have a motion by Councilman Ivy,
Second.
second by Councilwoman Casperson. All in favor?
Aye.
That award of bid is approved unanimously. Let's move on to item 6B on ordinances. Council, as you know, we'll go roll call vote on those. And then for those watching or watching at a later time on items 6B and 6A, we did receive, not only did we receive electronic public comment that was submitted during, for the public hearing that occurred at the Plan Commission, but I know that many council members were probably all were either there or watched the Plan Commission electronically afterwards. So the council is very aware of the public comment and the public input. The council has been on site and knows this property well. What I'd like to do, we're going to go with 6B and then 6A. I'd like to invite our Community Development Director, Drew Ellerman, to introduce the item, and then I'll invite the applicant to come forward and present, then open it up for questions and discussion amongst the council, if that's okay with you. Go ahead, Drew.
Hey, thank you, Mayor. As stated, applicant is requesting approval of the zone change, approximately 44.01 acres. The requested change is from the current zoning of open space to the proposed plan unit development residential. And they'll be utilizing the multifamily development standards in those zoning regulations. The proposed development is proposing 11 apartment buildings. This is a two-part development, so just bear with me and we'll get through. I'm going to start with the 11 buildings that are in green. With a total of 156 one-bedroom units, 192 two-bedroom units, and 48 three-bedroom units, for a total of 396 dwellings throughout those 11 buildings on this particular project. The dwelling unit per acre ratio on that for just the apartments will be 11.7. That falls within our medium high density kind of category when we get into densities. So that's where that falls in place. The height of the apartments will be under the allowed 42 foot. They're coming in having roughly 36 feet tall finish on those buildings. So again, well within that height on our maximum for a multifamily. The project is providing 911 stalls, meeting the required parking for the project. Staff has no issues with the provided parking for the apartment development portion of this particular development. Amenities provided in the apartment unit portion come in the form of 2 clubhouses, one of which has a pool and a lounge area, while the other has an adjacent playground area associated with it. There are also 2 dog parks provided, as well as 3 pickleball courts and 3 barbecue areas. Lastly, a grass lawn area has been provided as well on the project for playing outside. I can show you that later, and this is in the landscaping detail where that falls. The exterior finishes of the building meet expectations and offer a pleasant curb appeal. The applicant is also proposing a patio home portion of this development, which is located on the east side of the roadway coming out of the Coral Canyon Solace project. Within the patio home development, there is proposed 82 dwelling units in the form of 50 one-bedroom units and 32 two-bedroom units. There is provided the required parking in stalls in the form of 84 covered stalls and 121 open stalls, for a total of 205 parking stalls for the patio home portion of the development. The amenities in the patio home portion include a clubhouse with a pool, also a playground area and a pickleball court. We'd like to also point out that the applicant is also going to provide a trailhead parking area. That's what you see. I'll just take my arrow up here. Hopefully you can see my arrow dancing around right there. And so that's going to be a parking area for that trailhead for people to get on with their bikes, etc., to utilize that. So that'll be part, I'm including that with their amenity package since it is a benefit for that particular area. The surrounding zoning to this entire proposed development is open space to the north and PCD to the east, west, and south. That's a combination of both Sienna Hills and Coral Canyon that this property abuts. The allowed density in the 13 to 16 dwelling unit category, which is our high density, which this would fall under because of its location to commercial. This proposal has an overall dwelling unit per acre ratio of 10.86. So again, well under that 1316. Staff would like to also state that a development agreement will be entered into by the city and the applicant, which will come at a future date. I'm not sure how
Would you
close
repeat
that
that,
is.
please? Would you repeat what you just said?
Pardon?
Would you repeat that again, please, what you just said?
I said staff just wants to point out that there will be a development agreement that'll become part of this project that you'll have in a subsequent meeting. They're still working through that. And that's one of the conditions of approval I put in there as well. This is one of the major concessions relating to the project from the previous submittal that didn't make it through. The extension of the Grapevine Crossing will also be combined with this development, which takes traffic to the west towards the interchange. And again, toward that roundabout we talked about earlier tonight. So staff is much more comfortable with this project, knowing that the agreement will be in place, knowing that Grapevine Crossing will be built out, and in moving this development forward. The Planning Commission reviewed the request at their April 5th, 2023 meeting. The Planning Commission, by a vote of 4-1, recommended approval of Z-23-03 for the proposed zone change from the current open space to the proposed planned unit development residential multifamily zoning designation, and that was on to you, the City Council. And I'd like to just go through the slides right now, and then I'll answer any questions the council has. So bear with me. I'm just going to try to find, some of these have more information. I'm just trying to find the one that has the landscaping because that kind of shows which this is it right here. So I was just going to point out the play areas up here where they'll have grass. Again, we're very concerned about grass in anywhere in the city. So right over here off the parking area is a play area. And then of course the other amenities that you see on the park with the clubhouse right here. I'm going to try to get my arrow there. And then this is the play lot. And then there's the other clubhouse across the wash floodplain area that has the pool and the lounge to it. And then the dog parks are in this kind of bluish green color here and over here on the other end of the project. And then they have 3 pickleball courts scattered throughout in the apartment complex as well. So to the elevations of the buildings for you. sorry, I forgot there on the other portion of the slides. Let me drag over. There we go. Here's what the patio homes will be in their appearance. Mixture of stucco types, colors, kind of grays and off-whites with that. And then I can't remember if it was up or down to find the apartments. Oh, here we go. The apartments are kind of the same mix with the balconies off, for each unit coming out of them. So with that, I'll be glad to answer any question that the council have for me before you.
Drew, oh, sorry.
Go ahead. I was just going to invite you to ask questions to staff before we have the applicant come forward.
Okay. There was some public comment that we received, and they addressed the open space. And I know we have had this discussion many times, but can you just kind of talk about that and how the open space, the zoning for that and what the zoning is currently?
Right. The open space, many times our city plus many cities use open space as kind of a placeholder for whatever's going to come in the future. Since we don't know, we don't want to give it a zoning designation. But we're going to wait but we then follow the general plan that's underneath that. So if you go to the general plan for this particular area, it was given a PUD designation for all that area. Prior to that, it was actually even a community commercial designation. So it's always been designated since I've been here in the general plan to be used either commercial or PUD. So, but it was just in this particular case that open space was just a placeholding zone until some project came forward. So does that help answer that?
Well, yeah,
I know you like to.
I think you do good at explaining, so I appreciate you explaining that. I know we have that discussion frequently, but I think that where we've had some comments, I feel like that was good to address it again.
And it's good because the people who asked it before aren't the same people that are asking now. So I'm glad you brought that up to put that information out there.
Drew, help us to understand where it says open green space. What does that look like? It can't all be grass.
No, it's not. I pointed out the only grass area is that one. Everything else will just be a kind of a landscaped. There's this
Landscape gravel area, something like that.
Yeah, probably the crushed granite, gravel, whatever the popular or available product is at this time.
Trees and shrubs.
Yeah, that shows the trees and shrubs throughout. We can see in those green areas. All it says, if we go down to it's just a shrub area that's going to be then surrounded by, again, crushed rock of some sort.
Desertscape,
yeah, xeriscape type things. No, I think I put in this one. Let me just make sure that I always have them before they plant. They bring me the exact landscape they're going to put in, because right now it's hard for them to say exactly what's going to happen. They're so far off. So I think I always put in that condition number 5, detailed landscape and irrigation plans will be submitted prior to they put in. So we take even a harder look to make sure that it meets at least the minimum of this, if not more. But keeping in mind that we have our water conservation ordinance out there too. And so.
Drew, what are the square feet of those patio homes?
I think we were told 1,200. Is that, you guys can nod or something close to that?
They're between like 750 and 100.
Okay, because there is the 2-bedroom and the 3-bedroom. So, or is it it's 1 and 2. So it'll be 750 for a 1-bedroom up to 1,200 for the 2-bedroom.
And those will be for sale, right?
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot to read that. That's one thing that was clarified in the Planning Commission, which I know the council likes to hear. I was pleasantly surprised. They are going to be for sale, all the patio homes.
So Drew, I'd like to ask some questions regarding the trailhead. I'm glad to see Barry and Paul here today to help with that as well. When we set the standard, there's almost 40 parking spots there. Do we figure how do we figure for growth and for future? Because there won't be room for more parking spots there in the future. So how do we arrive at the number? And my question is there any pull-through slots, any bigger spots for RVs, or I don't know. I know this is a trailhead, so it's really not part of the development per se. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, I'm just going to invite Paul Quaid. They are planning on building that for us as part of their amenity package as well. But I think this is just a concept right here. I would imagine they're going to probably get that same design. Go ahead, Paul, you can jump in now.
Yeah, I just want to jump in with this. The master plan trail we have here goes along the freeway frontage. And when we talk about the commercial development, it makes more sense for it to come through this neighborhood than go through the back of a bunch of loading bays and behind some commercial buildings. So it kind of would fit to have a trailhead there, just a spot where people can jump on, get their bikes and get on the trail. And it really will be a nice connection. Yeah, you can see it goes right there next to the freeway. And we think that going through this neighborhood will just be a better route for our trail. And that just the trailhead just makes it that more usable and for people to jump on.
Staff, is our staff designing this trailhead, or is it the applicant?
No, the applicant's designing it. It's at this point, it's just a concept. We haven't seen any real defined plans of what that trailhead will be.
So a placeholder.
Yeah, it's just a placeholder.
So Paul, can you point out where the trail is going to be through the neighborhood? Because I'm not exactly seeing it.
Yeah, I think it's on that main road right there. It crosses. You can see that that kind of gray sidewalk along that. I guess that's, yeah. It's like the east side of the road that goes through there, and then it will connect to the road coming off of Highland, to the trail that comes down there, and then it will connect to the trail that's going on Grapevine Crossing.
Where did we end up on the width on Highland? Was it 8 or 10 feet?
10 feet.
We got 10 feet concrete.
Highland, it's mostly asphalt. There's a few, at Highland, yeah.
I just my experience on trails, I want to keep it consistent as much as we can. And I mean, trails are better if they're asphalt. I mean, I know concrete holds up better, but as far as the experience on the trail is better as asphalt. Just, it's better for running. It's better for biking. I just get concerned but I also don't like asphalt right next to the sidewalk either. But I mean, the recent one we just did was on 4200 South. It's asphalt right against the curb. It's not perfect, but it's still better than concrete. So, I mean, that's just kind of my opinion. I just think we should look at these trails, especially if they're these master plan trails, that we should aim for more asphalt than concrete just for the experience on the trails.
Okay.
So I would say we shouldn't, if we have to do it along the sidewalk, or I mean along the curb and gutter, then we might as well do asphalt instead of concrete, is all I'm saying.
Do you like when I've seen asphalt trails just parallel to curb and gutter, it's not attractive. I like that meandering.
I do too, as long
trail
as
if you have the room.
As long as it's not a hard meander, right?
Right, just a gradual
There's some
curve.
other trails we just paved that I don't know why we had it so tight. Like, I mean, obstacle course for Jeremy. So I know it's just my opinion, but I know I've spent a lot of time on the trails. I've designed a lot of trails. I just want to make sure it's an enjoyable experience, or why do we have it? If it's just a concrete sidewalk, I feel like it's not as enjoyable of an experience. And sometimes it makes sense to do concrete, but if it's a regional trail to a trailhead, I would think asphalt's a better route.
Okay, it is much nicer to have that meandering and a little bit of break
Elevation.
between. Yeah, if there's some landscaping between the trail and the road, it's much more pleasant.
Yeah. So I don't know how we can incorporate that into this type of plan. I'm still not 100% sure. It looks like it's going by that, I'm going to call it the Western Road.
The Highland? Is
Yes,
that an
it
extension
is.
of Highland?
It follows the Western Road.
But wouldn't it be better to, I mean, I don't know the grading along the wash. I mean,
Could it go through there?
I don't know. I just know that based on the grading, they're completely grading the wash, and there's challenges with that. I don't know if it makes more sense to incorporate the trail from the trailhead down the wash, down to Grapevine Crossing Road, and then Is our plan on Grapevine Crossing, the portion we already built, concrete through the commercial center?
Through the commercial center, it is asphalt, and it is separated from the curb and gutter by a couple feet. There's a buffer there.
That's right.
You know, I look at this trailhead a little bit as as an amenity to the project that's proposed, but also a little bit as a supplemental trailhead. That new Grapevine Crossing trailhead on the other side has how many parking spaces? 160 parking spaces. But this is really attractive because it allows you to, you know, cut through that under the freeway through that culvert and access that network of trails. So I think it's complementary to, you know, kind of the primary trailhead there, but I like your idea of exploring a trail down through that wash area that's not necessarily buildable. Because on big roads like Highland, I still like a little bit of sidewalk too. So maybe you can keep sidewalk on Highland and run that trail down through that graded area.
So does this trail, I know we've talked about it a little bit, but I just want to make sure that I understand. Is the trail, as well as the trail easement, shown on the plan? Or
Yeah, it is.
master plan
That's what I say,
trail?
when you look at the sidewalk on
Maybe
the
I'm having a hard time
upper-
seeing it.
Like I say, just you can see this is a standard sidewalk. If you look at my arrow up here, Councilman, on the road, kind of see that? That's your standard size sidewalk right there. That would look, and this one's twice the size.
East side.
Yeah. So I'll kind of where my arrow's just playing right there. Next to that, where it says the wash area on the north top of that, that's a 10-foot wide trail.
Okay. I just didn't see any notification that that's what it was, but I can see it now. And then about the master plan trails. All of them are shown as well.
This will do it. That's what Paul was explaining. Right now it runs up here. Let me go to the city map. And after a review of this, our leisure services aren't real thrilled about this trail, especially when you get into the topography of it. See the green dotted line? Mm-hmm. It's running through some terrain that's not great at all. So they want to bring it down right through this project and then run it. Because then I'm going to pull the trail right now, I'm going to zoom down in here. You can see it on this road. They're going to tie it in with this that will run all along Grapevine, all the way back to this project there. And so they'll bring it down through this development and get on right here instead of going where they have it proposed right now on our thing, because it's not the best place for it up there. So we'll still have it. It's just to be brought down south.
So Mayor, just a question for Paul. So if all these trails, master trails are noted, does your department approve it as it is?
Yeah, I'm involved from staff developer meeting all the way through. So we communicated with them as staff developer meeting, and then as it comes through city inspect, I look for them and look for the trails where we've got master plan trails.
And just one last question for clarification. So that trailhead shows 65,000 square feet. Well, my question is how did we arrive at that? How do we know that's big enough for what we're going to need in the future? Or
that may be a question for the applicant, where this is, like we discussed, maybe more an amenity for their development there. It's actually more than we've got at some of our others. Our Canyon Park is a park and a trailhead, and it's got a fairly small parking lot, and it fills up at times, but it's one of our more heavily used places.
So what's the process going forward then to approve this trailhead? They bring a design in, we look at it, we run it past your department, and you consider everything. Like what I'm thinking of is the new Salente and those trailheads up there and what we've discussed on those. It's that same process. And
yeah,
same
same
things will be
process.
considered.
This won't be to the scale that those are, but it would be the same process.
Good question. Jeremy, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I just want to make a couple of comments before you meet with the applicant, and then I'll let you hash it out all you want. But I do appreciate the changes, and I think we need to recognize that you didn't see them, but the Planning Commission did the first time. Some really significant changes that the applicant has brought, including Grapevine Crossing will go all the way and connect, which helps solve an issue that we have with the traffic coming off the Salente project. I know that the neighbors were really concerned about all of that traffic heading through Sienna Hills and the real residential area that we have. This this will not only take the traffic from Salente that direction, and all the traffic from this project will go towards Grapevine, but it helps solve that issue for the city and connect the road. So I appreciate their help there. And then,
Jeremy, can I just real quick?
Yes.
Is it a full build of that road, or is it just the portion of the road? I'm just trying to understand what
it's a portion, and it's a full build on their side of on their portion, but
We're building
the
half the
portion
road.
that goes through from here to Tyann won't be a full width curb gutter sidewalk all the way through yet.
What?
Until development happens. There's some Sitla parcels in there.
Yeah, so that's the question for the Sitla parcel. They're not planning on building curb and gutter. They're just planning on paving the minimum width that we can get a road through there.
You can ask, but I don't believe,
Okay.
well, they have their own agreements with them. So I think it'd be an applicant question, but it does make the connectivity work for us. And then I also appreciate their willingness to look at the patio homes, which really was another concern. It really helps buffer the single family. We go to the patio homes, we go to the high density, and then we go to the commercial. And then, it's really close to I-15. So if there is somewhere that you want to put this higher density, it's at least a spot that may not be as desirable for single family residential. We got a good amount of commercial there to help the city as well. So I just wanted to make those comments, appreciate the applicant making those changes. I know they're not insignificant, but they really help benefit the project in the city. So comment.
Great points, Jeremy. Good conversation, council. Any additional questions for staff, Councilman Henderson?
Is this a good time for me to comment on some things that I really like about it and some concerns that I have?
I think that'd be entirely appropriate.
Okay. So there's some things that I like about this project. I think I like the location. I think the mixed use is really good. There's good amenities. I especially like the patio homes, that part of it. My concern is the sheer size and number of apartments that are there. And, when this first came to Planning Commission, this revised version, and I got to looking at it, I thought, man, that's a lot of apartments, but I wasn't sure perspective-wise how big it was compared to other apartment complexes in Washington County. And the little bit of research that I did on the county records and on the MLS, I think this is going to be the biggest apartment complex in Washington County by a long ways. I looked at the biggest ones that I could find. A couple of them are in Washington City. We have one, the biggest I could find was 276 units. There's a 258, 264. Some of the largest ones in St. George are 244, 148. The Brio up here is 204 units. The Turner project that we really liked a lot and that we approved a few months ago is 180 units, so half this size. And so my main concern is just the sheer size. 400 units is a lot. And I'm just not sure if I'm really comfortable with that, project that big. I think I would prefer to see less apartments and more of the patio homes is kind of where I'm at on it. I like the project. I'm just not sure if that many apartments all in one location in one project is a good fit for me, for the city. That's just kind of where I'm at. So that's just my concern. I know that's not what you want to hear, but that's my concern, so.
Or do you mind if I add
Please.
to that?
This is a great time for conversation.
I share this similar concerns as Council Henderson. I've had a lot of residents reach out and I feel like their concerns are valid. There's a lot of high density, there's a lot of apartments in this area already. And so what I think would be better for the area is more patio homes to kind of match what's already there. And so I am not comfortable with this amount of dwelling units and this high density where this area is there's already several high density apartments that are quite large also in this area.
Thank you, council member.
So if we're talking concerns, I think it's I saw the last one. I think it's a lot better than the last one. My concerns go toward the wash and the long-term life and healthiness of the wash. It's going to have to be, it looks like, mass graded. And then how do we get that wash to be established? I know I looked up the firm map on it. It's in a zone A, so calculations are going to have to be made and do the Lomar and Clomar or Clomar then Lomar process. And I'm sure they're aware of that. I just want to make sure that what is our goal with this wash, where we're taking it from we're grading this wash. I mean, based on the contours, we're grading it, and they can tell me this if they're not, but based on it, it looks like they are. And then I'm concerned about us now we're disturbing all the natural native vegetation and not leaving it in a natural state. And I would say 95% of the wash downstream is that way, where it's left in a natural state and they've worked around the wash. And I don't know all the constraints, but I know there's an old dam that's there that's not really a dam, an official dam and stuff like that that needs to be taken care of. But so I have concerns with that and taking care of that. We addressed the master plan trail. I'd like to see it not through the development, more of an amenity that can be tied into the whole community aspect. The density does concern me, but with it being next to I-15, I just don't know if it's as huge of a concern to me as some of the other items, because it is right next to I-15. I mean, I used to live right by I-15, and it's loud, and it's going to get louder, and you're not going to go put $1 million homes up against these type of developments. So what is there a good mix? I don't know if, I mean, you said patio homes. Does it make sense to do some townhomes and then the apartments? I mean, because of the height of the freeway, I'd rather see the units go up higher and tighter and give us more room. I mean, they provided amenities, but I'm just not, with this many units, I'm not seeing where the kids are going to go play. There's just nothing, there's no area to go do anything in besides there's the pools. There's a couple pools that just doesn't feel like there's enough area for, and I'm not saying expensive areas to play. I'm saying, because I think a pool is an expensive area, but is there another type? I mean, I'd like to see a grass patch kids can go play some soccer. I mean, there's a lot of, there is the Sienna Hills Park down to the south, but there's a lot of units in there and not enough places for people to go. So I have that concern, but I don't know. I mean, we kind of talked about some of those things. The density doesn't scare me as much. I just think the usable space, I'd like to see a little bit different, is kind of how I'm feeling right now on it. But I overall not too concerned about the density, as long as we can get some better spaces in those areas.
The road from the west was mentioned a couple of times. What's the forecast on getting that punched through from like Maverick going to the east?
The conditions, if you read them, and they plan, I'm pretty sure, was going to be the first thing they do is the road will be put in.
But I guess my question is that all the other things have been tied up? I mean, everything else is ready to go. It's just now would be on them. There's nothing else outside of that would be constrained that?
Well, I'll let them come up and talk about, you're talking about maybe with Sitla agreements to go through the property. I'll let them address that because I'm not aware of that. So we'll have them talk about that. But that just, if everything is clear, the road would be the first thing they would do. In fact, it's one of the conditions before anything goes vertical, the road has to be in.
It would be a portion of the road. So essentially it would be the minimum width. There wouldn't be a full build out road. And that makes sense. I don't think we should make them responsible to build Sitla's road for their parcels.
Yeah. And then we'll get the rest of it as people develop, that'll be their improvement portion that they'll be responsible for as you go through the commercial areas heading westerly.
So at one point, I'm going to shift gears just a little bit. At some point, I thought that I'd read something about a pump track or something. Is that, and maybe the applicant needs to answer that. I don't see it in the amenities package, but I just wanted clarification on that when the applicant comes up, just to see where that was at. Maybe I'm totally getting my wires crossed, whether it was this development or not, but
I think,
What's that?
I remember seeing that also, a bike track.
I think it would be spokes crossed,
crossing.
not wires.
Okay, Mayor, for Mayor,
Kickstands and
spokes crossed.
Keeping it real tonight. Any additional comments before we invite the applicant up? Okay. You've heard some of the discussion. I'm going to invite you to come forward, and they've prepared a presentation. If you go through that, and then maybe after that presentation or during the presentation, address some of the discussion that we've had. And then after that, we can have further discussion with the applicant.
Yeah.
And if you just tell us your name and who you're with.
Yeah, Austin Pridgett with Elevate Development, and I've got Tate Murphy, Austin Anderson, and Kevin Pridgett with me here if I have to rely on them to answer some questions. Is it okay if I answer some questions first while they're still fresh?
For sure.
on
Go
my
ahead,
mind?
Austin.
Okay, so for the density question, the max density of high density is 16 units an acre. We came initially with 800 units in this area across 3 different projects. We dumbed it down to 396, and it's 2 separate projects. It can be one if it's one builder, one cohesive in 2 phases, which is 180 and 216. So if you break it down like that, it's not much different than the stuff on Telegraph or anywhere else. So it's not a massive, massive project if you take it in 2 phases. It's pretty comparable to the other stuff in the city. This being I-15 frontage and us putting in the patio homes behind townhomes, which are more dense and less desirable from a city standpoint, was a concession we made that was heavy, that diluted our density big time, but we did it. So we've come down and given some really big concessions. And I don't think when it comes to city master planning where high density should be next to commercial and then the feathering up to the townhomes of Ivory, I think that we've conceded a lot. And I can't think of another place better in the city for this type of project. There's a lot of open space, Councilmember Coates, to your point, in the wash. There's a lot of places to play. We actually had a bunch of amenities down in there. And then it was a recommendation that we take them out from in the wash in case, it floods at some point. But there are little areas and stuff we can put through there, including a trail and more little amenities if we need to. And we've got all that space to play with. Yes, it will flood every once in a while, but and then to answer your question on the wash was rerouted by the former owner that goes to the east along I-15 and all the way down through the Sitla commercial. It doesn't actually travel the correct path where it goes south at all. So if it were to flood today, all of that planning that you said is the natural grade, no water would go there. It would all go onto that commercial and ruin the whole area. And so we're coming in and correcting that wash that's been really rerouted from 20, 30 years ago. And so this is where it should go to tie into the rest of the city. It doesn't go there currently. And so we're fixing all of that. So you talk about natural grade and vegetation, that doesn't even exist today because it's been rerouted.
Can I ask you what your vegetation plan is for the wash?
So we've begun that engineering. We mostly did it for the plat to show the master plan. We don't have it fully engineered yet, but we will.
Let me rephrase my question. I'm not talking engineering. I'm sure you'll figure out the grades in that. I'm asking what kind of landscaping you're going to do to mitigate the grading of the wash, if you have a plan for that.
Yeah, we will. It'll come along with when we do the FEMA planning. Yes. So yeah, it's the same group doing both. So that's what I was indicating. But yeah, so the wash being corrected is a big concession. The density coming down is a big concession that I think Jeremy pointed out. But yeah, we'll go to the presentation and answer hopefully some more questions. But okay. In the meantime, we'll talk about the Grapevine Crossing Road coming from the roundabout. So our traffic study shows that not only will that alleviate the Solis traffic that's coming down, the citizens are concerned about, but a huge chunk of the eastern Sienna Hills residents will actually take that road out. So it's going to make the traffic all along Sienna Hills less than it is today when we bring that road through. So not only will our project not make it more, but overall it's going to be less traffic on the roads that people are concerned about. So, and that road will be done phase 1 as part of the development agreement. So that's another concession we made. There you go. That shows it pretty well. Where the black ends is obviously, you guys know where the road ends. Once that road ties in, those Sienna Hills developments will most likely take that road out to the freeway.
Steve, can you full screen that so we can see it a little better? That's better, thank you.
So yeah, the traffic study shows that road being completed lessens the traffic from Ivory, from those eastern Sienna Hills portions, all the way that goes past the Sitla office down the other way. All of that traffic will actually become less through those neighborhoods, even with our new project addition. So yeah, there's more slides to this, but I don't know if they're here.
Yeah, Steve, I'll take it from here if you.
Yeah, go ahead. There you go. So this shows where the traffic will head once that road is completed. The 90% of it will come out that road. Only 5% will take the current road, and 5% will go up over Solis. So all that traffic in that area, 90% of that's going to hit that new frontage road that we're going to put in. And we're working heavily with Sitla to progress this whole area in terms of commercial retail, in terms of all master plan, and the other neighbors as well. So we've been in talks with them about this project and other things, including the road. For the time being, if only our project gets approved and nothing moves on that portion, then yeah, it will be just a simple traveler road. But if we can get some of that stuff rolling too, then hopefully sooner than later it'll be the full deal. Yeah. So you can go to the next slide. That's just more about that parking study. You can go to the next slide. So yeah, this is how we were going to phase out the development plan. So proposed phase 1 of the development plan would be, obviously that Solis Road is almost finished. And then we'd come in and do the patio homes and the road that connects to the roundabout, the Grapevine Crossing North, I believe it is. That would be phase 1. So that road will be first thing to go to alleviate all that traffic. And the patio homes as well will be built and for sale. And then phase 2, if you want to scroll down, would be that eastern side of the wash, those 216 apartment units. And that could be one project or phase 1 of a larger project. So basically comparable to the other projects you were discussing will be that first apartment project there. And then phase 3 will be the other portion, which is 180 units, and complete the road that goes through the commercial area there and the trailhead. And that trailhead is up for discussion, whatever opinions we have as we move through this process, what needs to be there. I think we had like a Little Tykes pump track is what we moved to, because there's another pump track just down Washington Parkway, not too far from here. And so we changed kind of the design from a full-on pump track to like a Little Tykes pump track.
Sorry, it's an inside joke with the pump track there.
Oh, really? I don't know what they're called. There's a real name for them.
Yeah, it's just
17 palms.
But yeah, we do have it designed for an amenity in addition to the parking lot. So, and we've gotten some renderings back on that, but it hasn't been brought to the city yet. It's more of a placeholder, and we've been working through it. So that's how it'll phase out. And then obviously the commercial retail will be stubbed and ready as soon as, that big Sitla portion and our other neighbors portion needs to go first before a lot of retailers will come in. But as soon as we can fill them, we're going to fill them and get it built out. So it will be stubbed and ready to go as we build through this.
So you're phasing with phase 2. You could see even the retail coming maybe before phase 3 of the apartments.
Yeah,
just depends on the.
We will definitely have it up for lease or for purchase of retailers, and we'll be working. We're already working with some large retail agents, and we've got some interest. But where it sits at the end of this road that isn't completed, we haven't been able to move anything yet. But we're going to prepare the way for them to come, and hopefully we can build out along with Sitla and the other neighbors in the area, and really make a cool project altogether.
I want to hold you this, but I think it does make some sense to talk about a phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 approach. What kind of time are you looking at, maybe from the first apartments before maybe the second apartments are built? So we're not going to get 500 day 1 or year 1. Any idea? I'm not going to hold you to it, but what are you looking at as far as build out?
No, so Tate probably would know the answer. Do you want to come up, Tate, and talk about that a little better?
Yeah, I mean, just from an economic standpoint.
And then Tate, if you'll just state your full name for us.
Tate Murphy with Elevate Development.
Thank you.
So just from an economic standpoint with the loans, there'll be two separate loans. It could potentially even be two separate contractors, right? So, I mean, from the time phase one opens, depending on how leasing goes on that, then you probably break the ground on phase two. So we're probably talking a minimum of 18 months between the two, but it could be, potentially much longer than that as well.
Yeah, so we're not talking that many units coming on all at once. They'll be across two separate phases or completely different projects, depending on how it goes.
So you didn't quite answer my question yet, or my concern. Would you be willing to look at doing less apartments and more patio homes? Maybe reconfiguring the apartments like Councilman said, maybe make them taller? Something, would you be willing?
Well, we're pretty
willing
close
look
to
at
the
that?
height restriction, and to get the parking, 3 levels is really about what we could do in this area, unless we were to get a variance on that. But we've come down a lot on that density. I think the feathering out of where the apartments are now, I think it's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I like what you've done compared to when you first brought it to Planning Commission, because I was there and I saw that. But I still have the concern about the sheer size of the project, the apartment size of it. And one of our greatest needs here in Washington County is first-time home buyers. In Washington County right now, you're either living in an apartment or you have to afford $600,000 or $700,000 for a starter home. At least almost 500. And so I like these patio homes. We need a lot more of those.
We had discussed at one point the west side being condos for sale, so more affordable, and the east side remaining for rent apartment project, right?
Okay.
If that's how it phased out. So that's a possibility.
One of the tricky things is just from the standpoint of pulling through, correcting the wash. Obviously, you guys have been out there. You see all the earthwork that needs to happen for that to happen. And then to connect through Grapevine Road. I mean, the reason we've kind of ended up here is because you need a lot of scale to be able to pull all of that cost into the project, right?
Right.
And that's obviously where it gets a little tricky is the moment we start making it smaller, I mean, the patio homes become more expensive because they all have to, per unit, you have to burden the infrastructure costs. So then they become less affordable. So there's a little bit of, pushing and pulling there. And that's kind of why we've landed at the number we have, is because it's where it makes sense to be able to pull all that infrastructure and do all of that earthwork without having those patio homes, try to support way more than they are able to.
Right.
And then it starts, throwing out of whack in the market.
Yeah.
So it's really tricky. I mean, we love the patio home product, and we wanted to try to pull more of it in. It's just you need to hit some scale to be able to pull in all of that cost as well.
So there's some magic numbers involved with your development part of it. And I
that's the tricky
understand
part.
that. I do understand that. But, and I understand that you guys up in the Wasatch Front probably build these all over the place, these mega developments. My daughter lives in one in Vineyard, and not your project, but we're not the Wasatch Front. We're Washington City, and I'm just not sure if I like the proportions of this, and I know that's not what you want to hear, but
So my
one of the
question,
things we try to do, and one of the things that we always talk about, is trying to make Washington City, even though we're growing, we like to try to preserve our small town feel. And at least for me, I'm not sure if this does that for me, So,
my question would be, so the high density 16 units per acre, which we're at 10.7 here, what in the city general planning, where is that for? Because if it's not next to I-15, I guess I just don't understand where you're going to get affordable apartments in the city.
yeah, and I understand that. I realize that we need apartments, and we also need first-time home buyers. But for me personally, my magic number on apartment buildings is about 200 units.
And that's why we tried to do the two phases. I mean, we brought it all as one so that everyone could see that the cohesiveness of the development. But in reality, I mean, there's two clubhouses, right? There's 2 amenity packages. And so from that standpoint, it is like the apartments on Telegraph, all condensed there. They just have different names, right? So if we had come in with, 2 different projects with 2 different proposals, I mean, you would end at that density, but we wanted to be able to master plan the whole thing so you didn't get piecemeal. I mean, that's what we see a lot of in Salt Lake County and Utah County, is you end up with a lot of piecemeal projects where they say, oh, well, we only want 120 units. And then another developer comes in with 120, and then you end up just getting you end up with the 500 units, but they're all just kind of meshed together rather than master planned. So we knew that, it was going to come in and feel a little bit shocking, but we figured the benefit, and when we talked to staff, the benefit of master planning it all, rather than trying just to bite off chunks and come in and say, okay, now we want another chunk and another chunk. Now everyone can see it cohesively. And I understand that it feels way too many unless you look at it as the separate projects that, it starts feeling, oh, yeah, that 200 unit, 180 on this one, 216 on this one. Oh, yeah, that is kind of the magic number, right?
So Mayor, let me jump in right there if you don't mind.
Please.
I'm going to kind of go over where I'm at on the project. That's kind of where we're at. I'm concerned about the floodplain. I think that we do need to get it graded so it's going to work right. That's going to require engineering and then restoring it with natural vegetation or whatever that looks like. I did have the question answered regarding the development agreement. I know we have another agenda item to discuss the commercial, but we're ready for some commercial to come in, and I would be inclined to ask for density to be tied to commercial development there, considering that those are, just a second.
Yeah.
Considering that, sorry, I lost my train of thought. The tie density commercial within reason. I think that that's something that we've wanted up there in that area for a long time. And then as far as the overall numbers, I think with me, and I do understand the logic of what you're saying, that it could be two developments that are 200 each, and then combined it's the same thing. But it still doesn't escape the fact for me personally, I look at but more of where the kids are going to play. I looked at this, you've got about a half acre of grass. You've got a bike track, pump track that's going to be awesome. We see some amenities, but when you tie the 400 doors into children playing, I just don't see the amenities. I don't see that. So for me, I have a problem with the overall number, but in a little different arena. I think the 200 number is more in my comfort level as well, considering that, townhomes could be, or patio homes could be adjusted, but that's kind of where I'm at as well.
So I appreciate all those thoughts. I'm going to come back to, I'm not as concerned about the density if we have places for the kids to play. Just struggling. You say that you could play in the wash. Yeah, I'm sure there's going to be kids playing in the wash. Is that a safe place to play? Probably not. I mean, we build parks sometimes in the floodplain, but not the main floodway of the wash. And so I want to support it because I think that it's next to I-15. It's where we should put apartments. I'm not opposed to what you're saying, but I'm also, I'm not seeing where people are going to be able to do anything at these apartments. They're going to have to leave.
Well, you've got the park and the clubhouses and the pools. One thing I would point out, I think the goal of this project for us and what we've heard from staff and what we heard from Planning Commission is to get, and we heard here just a second ago, is to get commercial retail in the area. It's been empty for a long time. To get commercial retail to come, you need heads, you need people. I get what you're saying, that we want more open space. and we're trying to plan it as well as we can to give open space and get enough people that we can also bring retailers.
Let me clarify, okay?
Yeah.
I think you've heard that they want commercial. I'm not concerned about commercial as much as I'm concerned about making this an enjoyable place for people to live long term. I'm looking at them as, this is just me, right? Councilman Coates, I'm looking at them as separate projects. Do I want commercial here? Yes. I think it will come with the density. That's one reason why I'm not as concerned with the density. Now, I understand why the other council members are concerned, because this is a big project. I mean, we have a lot of apartments in this little area. Your roads are going to be big enough to handle the traffic. I'm not worried about that. It goes right onto a freeway. Those things aren't my concern. My concern is that you say there's lots of open space, but where is the usable space for all these families to use? That's my concern, is there's no usable space. And you got the pools, but that's a pool. And those are great amenities, but I'm looking for, I'll be honest, I'm looking for a big grass patch that these kids can play on as part of this development. So that's what I'm after, is to make sure that this is an enjoyable community. One of my favorite apartments is over by the Dino Crossing. And the apartments wrap around a huge grass area that the kids all can sit and play in. It's safe. It's not in a road. It's not off a road. There's not a parking lot. When I look at this, there's no place for these kids to congregate and even be neighbors besides in their apartments. And that's my concern, is that I want it to be an enjoyable community, that people want to live in these apartments, because, I mean, I'm sure they want to live in houses, but they can't afford outside of the apartment, or they're starting out. But I want it so that they can have an enjoyable place to be and have an enjoyable community. That's what I'm after.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So,
You want a big area that they can kick the ball around, essentially, right? So have some fun.
yeah,
I get that.
and you don't know this council, but you better get the trail right, or else we're not going to approve it. It's a
No,
big
this is
thing
where
with
we
us.
started the whole
We started with the
conversation.
trail. I don't want to get focused too much on the trail. I think staff's been pretty beat down to get you the right trail, but that's important to us too. And
We'll get the trail that you guys want.
it's the experience that we're after, and I think you'll have a better project. We'll have a better project long term, and so that's what I'm after. And so one of the things I want to do is, I'm not ready to make a motion because I'm not enjoying this. I would like to table it and let them kind of relook and see if they can do something. You mentioned the height. I don't know where we at on height on these.
They're 7 feet under, but I think when you hit the 4-story, that's when everybody has to worry about the elevators. That's a big thing for a lot of them.
It is. I'm just saying, something to look at. I'm not opposed to a height variance on these because we are against the freeway, which is so much higher.
Yeah, the grade,
And
the natural grade
so we
there
can
is low.
condense the building, go up, and produce more usable space that the kids can utilize in families. So that's what I'm after. I do think we're getting close, but I'm not there yet.
And maybe not all of them being 4 stories. Well, I think we
maybe-
wouldn't have
I mean-
to if you guys, that's something to throw out there.
Did you finish your presentation? I want to make sure that if there is an inclination to table, that you got through all the information that you wanted the council to hear tonight.
Yeah, I think we got through it, the majority of it.
Okay.
I mean, you guys know that we had shown kind of the elevation differences, and that it's not really, super impactful for the higher up houses, and I think you guys understand all of that. So
My question to you, Councilmember Coates. So we've got the big park and the clubhouse on the top portion of this, and then we have the pool and the clubhouse, and then we've got all the green space that borders the washes there. One that's the length of that whole building, one that's the length of an additional pickleball court, and then in between the 2 pickleball courts, we've got a big field there that will be grass. How much more area? I mean, the scale of this is very large, and those areas are very big for the kids to play, and there's about 4 or 5 of them there. How much more do you think you'd need?
I'm going to tell you right now, I get in trouble when I design people's projects. I'm just not thinking there's a good big square area for them to use. You got a lot of linear area. And
So that one right next to the
and-
clubhouse above the wash here, you pointed that one, Drew, above the wash.
Yeah, I'm looking at just, from my little
playground
professional opinion on this, is that if we have to, I'd take building 8 out, find some way to go up on some others, make them 4-story. These are 3 stories. You'd take 3 buildings, say, make them 4-story.
Would that hit the mark if that whole building area was
And then if we can turn this into, because I thought about going over here, but it's close to the road on this building. over here, this building number 11.
I'm going to defer to that. I'll let your design group work.
Yeah.
I'm just saying I get into too much trouble when I try
would
to
love
figure that stuff out here. I don't want to shoot off the cuff and tell you. I'm just telling you that I mean, that's Drew's opinion. I don't know. Maybe there's a different layout that makes sense. And I mean, you don't want to hear this, but maybe there's a density or two up from what you have currently to make this more pencil viable to you, but gets us more what we want. I mean, that's just where I'm at. I don't know.
I'm totally okay with going taller on the buildings. And I agree with Councilman Coates that I look at that and it's a lot of buildings and a lot of parking lot. And so my thing is, like I said before, I'd rather see some more patio homes. And I'm okay with going taller on the apartment buildings because it is right next to the freeway. And I don't want you to get the wrong idea from me. I like the project with some adjustments. And you're correct. This is the right place for high density right next to the freeway. But, you know, like I say, my thing is I'd rather see more patio homes, less apartments, less apartment buildings. You know, if you were to go taller with it, I'm totally okay with that because that's in a good spot to do that. Anyway, yeah, that's where I'm at, you know, and I know some people are really anxious to get the road done and the commercial in there, but to me, I'm just, you know, that's not a big deal to me. I mean, I'd rather get this right and, cause that other stuff's gonna come, you know, we know that. And, you know, I'd rather get this project right and I'd rather have a good look for Washington City. Like I said, we're not the Wasatch Front, you know, we're Washington City. We don't, these gigantic mega projects, I mean, I'm not into them that much. And you know that because I've been talking for 20 minutes about it. But anyway, so that's where I'm at. So, you know, take that for what it's worth. So.
Further comments, council?
Yeah, I would, Mayor,
Martinson.
So I like the idea, the taller buildings, so you can play with the layout, because as I'm driving down that Vineyard Road, I know you've got it, the frontage, you've got it broken up a little bit. It's a little tiered as you look at the elevation, right? It falls back. There's a little play on that, but it looks just buildings right along that road. It's buildings along the other road, which doesn't bother me as much because it's on the commercial side. But you've got patio homes that's all they're going to see is 4 buildings, massive, whether they're 4-story, 3-story in the end. If we could play with that layout a little bit, if we have to go higher, just so it's not 4 buildings all in a row along that road, because that just doesn't feel right in any area of Washington City. So that's my 2 cents. Everything else has already been said. So.
Thank you, Councilman. Good comments. Well, we appreciate you being here tonight. I know this isn't exactly what you were hoping for tonight, but I think you've got a lot of feedback and a lot of honest feedback from the council. We recognize this is a big investment. We recognize this is important. It's important to you. It's important to us. So, you know, we appreciate you being here tonight. Council, where do you want to go from here?
I'll make a motion that we table item 6B, zone change Z-23-03, and I'm not going to put a date on it until you can convene with with staff and yourselves and your group and see what kind of modifications you can make.
You okay with that, with a date uncertain, legal?
Correct. You may just ask the applicant if they think that there's a date that they might be able to come back to you with some
2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks?
I think we could be back in 2 weeks.
So I'd like to, are you comfortable hearing it in 2 weeks from now on the 26th?
It'll be all fresh in your minds so we can hit all your touch points.
Just so you know, you have to have it in like next week. It's so to be on the agenda. So
we'll try for 2.
He's always the optimistic one.
What can we do, Tate?
We'll try for 2, but we'll work with staff to determine the date.
2 weeks means you've got a 1 week time period to have it submitted. If you went 4 weeks out, you would have 3 weeks to have it submitted. That's
Yeah,
kind of-
we'll work with you, Drew, and come up with that.
I think I already, from your comments, I already have basic idea of what needs to be done from here. And so we got to just get with our engineers and they'll kind of dictate that timeline.
So if you had your adjustments back in a week from today by the 19th, then it would be in packets for council meeting on April 26th. You comfortable with that timeline? The other option would be pushed out to the second Wednesday in May, which is May 10th.
Yeah, we'll shoot for the 2 weeks. And if we need an extension to 4, then we'll let staff know.
Okay, so
Want to modify your motion?
I think I'll just say I motion that we table item 6B until the applicant is ready and work with staff. And if it's over 2 months, you have to start the process over or come back and ask for an extension.
Yeah, it won't be.
Okay.
Yeah, we're.
Council, you've heard the motion.
If it's a drastic enough change, does planning commission have to see it again?
Your thoughts on that?
Planning commission's a recommending body on these type of items. The council may see prudence in asking them to look at it again, but I don't conclude that they're required.
I think we're okay.
I was just
Good
making,
question, though. Good question.
I'll second that motion.
Mayor, question.
Please, point of order.
Point of order. I just want to make sure that all of your questions have been answered. I mean, we've kind of, if there's any questions on density or something, then Mayor, I would suggest that we just take a minute and, because we want to be helpful in this process.
I would say if we get the open space you're hoping for, which I'm seeing ways to do that, if you'll give a variance on height, that makes a lot more possibilities. Turning some of those buildings so it's not 4 in a row, opening up some of that space. Is the total density at 10.7 across this area okay? I mean, I think we're well below the high density if we make those adjustments.
So I think you've heard the discussion tonight. Some are, some aren't. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, it's hard to say. I think
Okay.
you present your next.
And so
we can
the
work
second
through it.
question to that is that variance in height. If we come back with 4 stories, we're not going to hear, oh, it's too tall now, right? That's
We would have to go through a height waiver process.
One thing I think if you've been listening, as I have appreciated listening to the council tonight too. I think it's likely that there's a comfort level of around 200 apartments. There's also a desire to fill more of that missing middle, whether that be additional patio homes or some townhomes or some things that people that first time buyers can purchase and get into. I don't want to get into your business, but I think I heard some of that, but I'm not a voting member of this body. I facilitate this discussion.
Yeah, I think we can accommodate. What about it being spread across the 2 projects? If we come down somewhat, maybe add some more patios on that far side. Yeah, I've got some ideas. I think we can hit the mark for sure.
So can I say something, Mayor? I don't think 200 apartments is realistic for you. I understand that. You're not going to be able to go down that low and make this work for you. I understand that. But just do what you can. That's what I'm saying. I mean, if you can go up a little taller, maybe make some rearrangements, get some more open space. If you can add some more patio homes, a few less apartments, possibly a few more patio homes, then I think we're golden. But I don't expect you to come back with 200 apartments and 200 patio homes. I know that won't work for you.
About 201.
201, I'm good with. Yeah.
Hey, we'll go 201 if they can show us
the light
that
in the
pump track.
Thank you.
We want to work with you, but it's
we
got to
appreciate
feel
it.
right for our city.
No, we get it totally. We want to
So-
make it right for your city. We want to make it an awesome project that you're proud of. We don't want to force anything that shouldn't be there, right? We want to do all these things that are going to help with the wash and the road and make a project that's great. So that's what we're striving for.
Well, we appreciate you. We appreciate the honest back and forth, and we're trying to get this right too. Council, there's a motion and a second on the table, and table this item where it's under ordinances. Let's go ahead and roll call vote on that unless there's any further discussion. Let's go Martinson, Henderson.
Aye.
Coates.
Aye.
Ivy. Casperson. Item 6B is tabled for no more than 2 months, and as soon as you can get it back to us.
Thank you.
Let's move to item 6A, which is probably just going to follow suit with that. Jeremy, let's at least have you introduce this item, and then we'll fast track this one. It goes with 6B.
Want Jeremy to do it or Drew?
Excuse me, Drew.
I think we should have Jeremy do it.
I want to hear this. I'm glad. Appreciate that, Council Mayor. The applicant is requesting approval to change the zoning of approximately 25.16 acres. The requested change is from the current zoning of open space to the proposed plan unit development commercial. The PUD request is for the purpose of developing the acreage into a future commercial project, with the applicant fully understanding that they will have to bring back in the specific design and use plan back before the city when they are ready to build out this particular portion of the project. Again, this request is only for zoning approval of PUDC with no submitted project plan. This particular location was recently approved for a general planned use designation a while back for planned unit development, which allows for PUDR and PUDC. The surrounding zoning to this parcel is open space to the north, PCD to the east, west, and south. Again, it's that same Sienna Hills, Coral Canyon developments are surrounding them. Staff has no concerns with this proposed zone change as outlined. The applicant is in harmony with the surrounding land uses and with the general plan. Planning Commission reviewed the request at their April 5th meeting, and the Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of Z-23-02 for the zone change request from open space to the PUD commercial zoning designation onto you, the City Council. I'll be glad to answer any questions that the council has on. I'm just leaving the same slide up. It's this area. Again, they just put this up here as a concept for you. But the area, this would not, you're not approving this layout. This is just the area to show you, and they kind of threw some what could come at a future date. So again, any questions, I'll be glad.
Yeah, so just a comment, and it's just to help them, is that I know you threw it as a concept. There's a lot of contour grade across here, and there's going to have to be, I don't think that big box is going to work the way it's laid out, but I'm just letting everyone know. It's just I'm glad you said a concept.
Yeah. No, it is, because this is not, again, we just put this on here to help give an idea. I think they wanted that so they could show you what they hope to maybe do, but we are not approving the layout of these because they have to come back for specific.
And I'm sure Public Works is aware of their main line that runs across there somewhere right through there, and they'll have to be relocated.
I see not one but two nods.
Okay, with that, Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to move forward on this if everyone's ready.
Comfortable with that, Council? Tate, would you like to say something? Come up to the mic and just introduce yourself one more time on that.
Tate Murphy with Elevate Development. I was just talking with Austin, and potentially as we rework the residential, we might need to adjust a few things. So it might make sense to wait until the next meeting, just so we have flexibility with our engineer and that we don't have to change the zone after we just have approved one. So it might make sense.
I think we're
to
on the same page with that.
Okay, great. So we'll just table that one as well then, if that's okay.
Okay, so based on the applicant's request, we're going to table item 6A for, I'm making a motion to table 6A, zone change Z-23-02 till the following meeting or within 2 months.
You've heard the motion.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Coates, second by Councilman Martinson. We'll go roll call. Henderson.
Aye.
Coates. Ivy.
Aye.
Casperson.
Aye.
Martinson. That item is tabled as described. We'll move along to item 6C. This is consideration to approve an ordinance for zone change request Z-23-05 from residential agricultural 1 acre RA1 from Ag 20 acres A20 to residential agricultural 1 acre RA1 located at 646 East Pine Street. City Planner Eldon Gibb, are you presenting on this? All right.
Council, I was hoping you would ask Drew to present this one for me, but
Jeremy, are you presenting on this?
the requested change is from the current zoning of agricultural 20-acre minimum to a proposed residential agriculture 1-acre minimum. The RA1 request is for the purpose of removing the split zoning that is currently in place on this parcel and to accommodate a future plat amendment where this 2 acres would be proposed to join the Majestic Fields subdivision, which is just to the north. Staff would like to note that the access to the 2-acre piece will be from the applicant's residential home located directly to the north, which is 646 East Pine Street. Access from Washington Fields Road to this piece does not meet the city's access management requirements. This particular location has a general plan land use designation of low density, which supports the R110 and R112 or greater zoning designations. And the surrounding zoning to this parcel is R110 to the north, RA1 to the east, agricultural 20 to the south, and R115 to the west. The Planning Commission reviewed this request on April 5th, 2023 and recommended approval of Z-23-05 for the zone change request from agricultural 20 to the proposed residential agricultural 1 acre. And that was based on the following conditions and findings in your report. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Thank you, Eldon. Council, you're familiar with this item. You heard the public comment, you heard the presentation at Planning Commission. What questions do you have for our city planner?
I just have two questions. I think they're fairly easy, but I'd like to know, with this garage and this house kind of being co-joined, like to hear about the stormwater, if there's any other drainage concerns, and does this garage have its own electrical service, or is it drawn from the house?
I can't touch on the drainage concerns. I do know power comes from the existing house.
So Washington City generally requires landowners that have modified the natural grade to manage and detain the stormwaters from their surface in a way that doesn't flood them onto neighbors. That's a state law. It's a standard that the city also requires. As we know, city requirements frequently have people that either don't like them or don't feel like they're being complied with. Typically, if there's a issue of waters flowing off of one property onto another, we advise the parties to take their gripe to a civil court that can enter orders that'll have authority to govern what they do and maybe enjoin or stop actions that are happening that are causing damage.
So is the only access to this property going to be through the lot in that subdivision then?
Well, like technically, yes.
Okay.
I don't think the Staleys offered them, because that's the only other person who could give it to them, because they can't come off the Fields Road. And I don't think that's an agreement between them. But right now, I would technically say for us to look at it, I'm just, coming off of Pine Street, they have, if you've been to the home, there's two actual on either side of their home. They can get back there with a big truck and a trailer.
Which lot is it?
It's this one right here under the Pine Street itself. It's that lot right directly under the name of the street.
So those lots on Pine Street, I can't remember, is there a block wall on the rear lot line? Do we require those on subdivision?
All of them except this lot does not have it.
Okay.
For sure the other ones do if we were just out there.
And we require those, do we?
Well, this one would have that subdivision because it adjoins any subdivision. They don't have to unless it's going on to agricultural or to commercial. Because it's on ag, they had to build that block wall, but they left this one off, and we were fine with it till we decided what was going to happen here. If they don't get it, then it would be required to put one up. So
my question is this: if this property is adjoined with the lot on Pine Street and part of that subdivision. Will they be required to put a block wall between their big lot and the farm?
Probably no, I would say, because it's residential agricultural.
Okay.
So the question I have, Drew, on thinking down the road when these properties get sold, what's stopping from this property being sold on its own?
Well, what's going to happen is we have to do this to then, they're going to amend their plat.
They're going to
And
amend
as soon as
this
that
plat.
plat's amended,
Okay, that's
that's
where I
what
was
we'll
getting
do
to.
it. Yeah, that was part of this whole thing, is that I'm going to require them to come back in and join these, because I can have dual zones on one lot. We're going to do an amended and extended.
Okay.
Plat.
I just wanted to make sure we we're heading that direction, because otherwise what's stopping from a future property owner saying, hey, I don't want this, but I like the property. And then now we have to, but there's no access on Washington Fields Road because it doesn't meet our access management. And so I'm just trying to
No,
make
there's
sure.
things they want to do on this piece. They're doing all this for. So that's why I'm not worried about it, because they're going through all this so they can do some extra things. They have to tie it to the lot that's on Pine Street to do what they want to do. So I'm not worried about it because of those reasons.
One of the concerns on engineering was the connections from Pine Street down. I just want to make sure. It says there's concern with the hooking utilities up from the house to the barn.
That's because they're separate. If they're not separate, there's no concerns. That was the issue that Public Works had, because we're not supposed to cross a sewer line going across a property line in case it did sell later. They didn't want that. This eliminates so many problems we have that have piled up because of what they want to do with the piece. So that's why we're going through the motions, if that helps council kind of bring some of your concerns down. This is all to help improve everything and the concerns that we have because of all that. So.
Further discussion on this item?
Mayor, if I may just briefly, some of you may be asking, why aren't we requiring a detention basin or a retention like we do on subdivisions? And the answer is this is not a subdivision application. We don't get to exact that type of a requirement from them. It's just a zone change. The city's aware of some stormwater issues that have been raised at the Planning Commission related to, I believe, filling and the construction of the barn. But that barn construction was a permitted structure within the zoning at the time. It wasn't a subdivision where we get to say, hey, we'll give you X in exchange for you complying with our stormwater code and different things like that. And so that's why there is no such requirement on this one, as it hasn't been a subdivision application that allowed that.
Thad, let me just ask, and this is maybe a legal procedural question that I need to work out in my own little brain.
Mm-hmm.
So you build a barn, but it has no deeded access. It was intended it was going to come through the house all the time. That doesn't hardly make sense to me, how you can build a garage and then you can access. I mean, it's fine. It's a beautiful garage. I'm so jealous, but
So the applicant had access to that barn through his lot, and so the city was.
There's a lot in the subdivision.
The applicant was a lot owner, and so the city concluded that there was legal access to the barn. Now he could in theory sell that lot off and create a legal access problem. That'd probably be a bad strategy.
Well, that's kind of what I was thinking. Is it just?
But by doing the replat, it makes it one lot, and so it makes it not illegal.
So that's the next step then.
That's what you will see.
How soon? Oh, you're the applicant? Okay. You
Probably
must
as
be
soon as you
Anderson's.
get your zone change. Is that what you're saying, right? Because they're ready to move on some other things, so they're not going to be lollygagging anyway. So
There are drainage issues; those are worked out.
but let me point out.
Maybe
go
just
ahead.
a minute. The city, if there's drainage issues, they've got a problem with their neighbors, and state law supports the neighbors. If there is water draining off of this onto the
work through
neighbors, they've got a problem with state law. The subdivision would be when we would be able to come in and say, you need to comply with our stormwater ordinance.
Now, I will point out that some of the stormwater, at least what I took from it, and I could be totally wrong, but I think the adjoining property owners were wanting to state that, hey, we have water that runs over there and we don't want that to be an issue against us. I think that's what I took from some of that discussion is they've got water issues that come through Staley Farm property that go there, and they just want to make sure that them doing this, they're not going to have to then do something, but we can't get in the middle of that as that is said anyway. So, but some of that discussion was water running actually onto this piece as well as coming off. I think it covered both directions. So,
but always pretty down there. The applicant is here. Would you like to say anything before the council votes on this? Probably the right choice. Any specific questions for the applicant? Council, let's get a motion and a vote on this item.
I'll make a motion to approve an ordinance for zone change Z-23-5 from residential agricultural 1 acre and a -22 RA1 located at 646 East Pine Street. Gosh, I didn't want to keep saying all those agricultural.
I have a motion by Councilmember Casperson.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Coates. It's an ordinance. Let's go roll call. Coates.
Aye.
Ivy. Casperson.
Aye.
Martinson. Henderson.
Aye.
All right, that is approved unanimously. Enjoy the rest of your night. Move on to item 6D. This is consideration to approve an ordinance for code amendment of Title 9, Chapter 17, conditional use permits in the Washington City Code. Community Development Director Drew Ellerman, if you'll give us an update. This has been through the Planning Commission, and
Yes, it
now
has.
it's back to council.
Yeah, so the council and the city's been wishing to amend the code, which is before you tonight. In my report shows the areas in red are what we amended, but don't look at the ordinance because I take the red out, because if you don't, the codifiers go, why do I have red on your ordinance? So that's with all those new changes, unless you have a few you want to modify right now, we can do that in part of your motion. But so this basically goes back and changes the conditional use, the way it's reviewed. All commercial items will be through the council. Anything non-commercial still stays with the Planning Commission, but they will still be the recommendation body on the commercial ones. So, and they will hold the public hearings. So you still will be not having to do the public hearings on both. We're just going to do them at Planning Commission. You'll get those reports back on that. And this just turns over just the commercial CUPs. And I'm hoping to clarify that's just for the development side of it, right? I know I wanted to ask this because if somebody does a tenant improvement on a building that's already there and it's a permitted use, I don't think the council wants to be in the middle of that. That just popped up as something that happened in the last week, and I want to just verify that going forward.
But what I've noticed is the council wants to be not only aware of, but involved in significant
new
commercial construction.
Okay.
Am I sensing that right, council?
So Drew, what you're saying is if it's a tenant improvement for a new business in an existing building that
It's a
may or may
regular
not.
permitted use. They're just changing the inside. It meets, it's a permitted use. I would think that, that we wouldn't. Now, again, if it had to go for a CUP, not all of them will, but if they just kind of modified something because staff felt like they needed to, but it wasn't new construction per se on it, and I'd probably play that by ear anyway. If I'm going to err on the side of more coming this way, but some of them, I got the intent that you don't want to have everything come before you anyway like that.
It feels like
perspective,
we want to make that definition in the code so we don't run into a situation where we're guessing.
Well, as I read it, it says and or city council. So I think that gives Drew that discretion. And I think if there's a question,
I'm going to err to bring
let
it
us
to
know
you.
and we'll let you,
Because
we'll let you know.
I only came across one that might be, but I'm just worried. I'm going, well, I didn't think, but
If I'm confused now, you're going to be real confused later. I think when we say
Maybe
and
we
or,
better-
it gives Drew the ability to decide.
We better be clear.
Yeah, I'd like to see some clarity if we're going to do that.
Well, council, tenant improvement and betterments on an existing building? What are your thoughts?
I'll tell you my thoughts. I don't think we should do any of it, but that's my thoughts. So I'm
One
fine with
of
leaving
the
it out.
planning commissioners was on the same page as you as well, so it's fair. It's a fair input. But if this is moving down this direction, what are your thoughts on tenant improvements and betterments on an existing building with a new business.
Well, Mayor, I guess the way I'd rather it be said is any commercial, anything related commercial, whether it's new development or
use.
not, anything like that. That's what I want the clarity to be. Yeah, if it's any and all commercial, whether it's new construction or not, and it's CUP, bring before the council. And that's the way it's already. I would say that's kind of how it's written anyway.
And I'm okay with that, but if you remember, council, at our retreat, we had a very healthy conversation about this, and we detailed the reasons why. You know, the worst thing as a council member is if you're asked a question by a citizen and you go, I don't know, and you should know. And that was one of my concerns for bringing this forward, but I'm completely fine with that. Lee,
So a lot of this is awareness, right? We want to be, as a city council, as the elected body, aware of commercial, aware of it. And so I would say, so that we don't have the ambiguity, let's just do all of them. Because I don't think it would take up much more time, you know.
Agree.
And that way, because my main thing is awareness. We want to be aware of the commercial development and what's going on in the city. So I think that's the main purpose of this. And because of that, I think we should just see all of them.
Me too. I don't see a distinction. Just
Feel good about that, Councilmember Casperson, Councilmember Martinson, Councilmember Coates.
Commissioner, Chairman, or Councilmember Henderson, when you said it will be all of them, will you just specify what you mean by that so we can make sure that what's written is what you're saying?
Just any commercial
CUP.
Whether tenant improvement.
Not the residential ones, just the commercial.
all commercial.
Commercial, new or remodel.
Clear on the far end down there? Clear enough?
Mayor, just one clarifying question though, I noticed that on 917.3, they're stricken where it says a sign indicating the proposed conditional use permit shall be posted. Was this something that the planning commission suggested, or is that
That's your state law.
That's per state
We
law?
just had it in our code all this time. It was 2 or 3 years ago, the state pulled out that you don't have to put signs up for them anymore. So I'm just glad that they did.
That's good to know. Thank you.
We ready for a motion?
I can make that motion, Mayor, if we're ready.
Yes.
Thank you. I make a motion to approve an ordinance for code amendment of Title 9, Chapter 17, conditional use permits in the Washington City Code.
I have a motion by Councilman Ivy,
Second it.
second by Councilman Henderson. We'll go roll call. Ivy.
Aye.
Casperson.
Aye.
Martinson.
Aye.
Henderson.
Aye.
Coates.
Aye.
That is approved 4-1.
Troublemaker in the bunch.
It's healthy. It was a healthy vote. Let's move on to item 7. Report of officers from assigned committee. Councilman Martinson.
I will update that I got my email address finally updated from the flood control so that I'm getting notified and added to those meetings because I have not been. So I found out that it was an incorrect email. So it's been updated. That is the only update I have.
Good. Did they do an EN or an ON instead of an EN?
It's spelled city.
Okay, that's not what I would have expected. Councilman Henderson.
So I don't have anything other than I'm super excited for Cotton Days and for the parades. And I just got a box of 50 flags to decorate the council trailer. So we will be decked out in Old Glory.
I like it. Councilman Coates.
Yeah, so on flood control, I think you stole my thunder and sent out that.
Oh, sorry. I just
That's all
wanted
right.
to
I
make
just
sure
had
you all
to
had
throw
it.
it out to you. So no, you all got the pamphlet that they did. I mean, we're seeing higher flows on it. And again, I missed the meeting too because we had the power board meeting that night. And so, but I got some, Paul from Public Works filled me in on what happened and sent it over. So as long as we don't get some warm rains, we might be all right. But there's higher flows today for sure than we've seen last week or so. As far as Power Board, we had the Power Board meeting and you're all informed on that one as well. So, and that's all I have. Oh, solid waste. We had our solid waste meeting on Monday. Things are going good as far as the construction. They're thinking the construction's going to put it out to bid in the next month or so. And then after that, they're hoping to be under construction. And they said a year, I'm going to say a year and a half, probably realistically, to get the first couple phases in the scale house done. So I know they're working with staff right now through some of those items. So
it's going to be beautiful. Did the district meet over at the new county administration building?
We did. It doesn't feel as official because they put us in a training room now, so we don't get to go in the grand.
Oh, you didn't? You were on the third floor.
Where we were today,
Okay.
just on the other side. That's where we met for our meeting, but it was kind of nice because it was more up close and personal with the whole group. So it felt good that way.
That's a pretty good sized board.
Yeah, 21 member board. It's good times.
Great.
We barely had 11 this time, so
Quorum.
That's all I had.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Ivy.
Yes, Mayor. Just wanted to remind folks who might be listening about the county fair. We've got a couple of rodeos this week and a youth rodeo, but I want to put a special plug in for the special needs rodeo, 11 a.m. Saturday morning at the county fairgrounds. But Mayor, I would defer my other comments if it'd be okay if I could just read a quick note here. Would that be okay? It says, Dear Chief Williams, I thought I'd just take a second today and give the Washington City Police Department a huge shout out and thank you. One of your officers noticed that one of our Washington Elementary outdoor Connex storage containers had a door unlocked and opened last Saturday. The officer quickly contacted staff at the school, stayed at the grounds until our custodian arrived. They met and determined all was accounted for and undamaged. He goes on to say that they really dodged a bullet. He had thousands and thousands of dollars worth of stuff in there that could have been ruined, scattered, stolen, or worse. And then the last couple of lines is this. I have been, and Kelly Mitchell's been a longtime principal at Washington Elementary. He's a good man. I have been so very impressed with your department, your support of many of our activities, your vigilance, and your dedication to our young elementary age kids and adult staff throughout my 10 plus years as a principal here at Washington Elementary. Thank you so much. And I just want to say as with my assignment serving with public safety, I want to echo Mr. Mitchell's comments on that. And it's just daily where we have experiences like that where, where our officers and our firefighters, they truly understand what community policing and firefighting is. They're community members that are highly trained and specialized, but just a shout out and a thanks to our department and to our firefighters again.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman Casperson.
Well, there was a great turnout for the Lions Club Easter egg hunt, and the Youth City Council did a great job at getting everything ready and helping in the way they can. We had a great little cute setup with Alice and the Easter Bunny, and I just feel like it was a great community event, and there's a lot of people there, and it was really fun.
That was packed.
Yeah.
And you were there early and stayed late. Good job.
How many eggs did you get?
Well, my kids got a lot of candy, so enough that will last for a long time.
And you'll all be happy to know that the bell was like right on time this year. So the bell is ringing again, and it was a good way to start off the mad dash for the candy. I just want to say thank you to each of you. I appreciate all the sacrifice and work you do in your various assignments. And I would just echo Councilman Henderson's reminder for us about Cotton Days. It's going to be a really exciting time for us to be involved and reconnect with our community. And there's a number of events, and don't feel like you have to be to all of them, but make it to what you can. All right, item 8, city manager report.
I want to discuss something I think is fairly significant for our city. I think many of you know, but St. George a few weeks ago placed a 6-month moratorium on new event applications held in St. George at city facilities. So they're not allowing any applications to come forward. I think it's significant for us because they permit hundreds of special events per year, many more than we do. So I expect to see a greater number of applications coming to Washington because of the moratorium. I want to make sure publicly we have everyone understand we can't take all of the events from St. George. We probably can't even take a portion, a very large portion of them. We just don't have the facilities or the staffing. We haven't ramped up to that point. And we still want to maintain parks as parks for our residents. If they're always full of events, then a lot of what we talked about tonight, where people need a place to go, we're shrinking grass. They just don't have those. I expect that according to our policy, I'll end up denying many applications in the coming months because and according to our policy, they cause unreasonable inconvenience to the public just because of the sheer number and size that could come to our city. We've denied events in the past because we don't have facilities large enough or enough parking to accommodate the events without causing the unreasonable inconvenience or causing a heavier park use than is reasonable for our city. We still need to keep the parks open and used as parks by our public. So please be aware of that. In the event of a denial, people do have the option to appeal to the city council. So I'm making sure everybody understands that we're going to have events that are great events. They're worthy causes, and we really will just have not the staffing or the facilities to handle some of the events that St. George has been able to do. So if you have any questions or concerns about that, let me know. But I expect that's going to happen. And it's as much a capacity issue as anything for us.
I actually really appreciate those comments, Manager. And, in Washington, we have our own identity, and we have a pattern of events that we've held traditionally. And I don't think that needs to change because a neighboring city is changing their approach to it. So I appreciate those comments, and I think there's a lot of wisdom in that. Anything else? Jeremy, anything else? Well, we do need to go into closed session for 9A, purchase, exchange, or lease of property, and 9B, pending or potential litigation. I'm hopeful that those items will both be fairly brief. So I'll be happy to hear a motion to that effect.
Motion to adjourn to a closed session.
A motion by Councilman Ivey, second by Councilman Henderson. We'll do roll call vote. Casperson.
Aye.
Martinson. Aye. Henderson. Coates. Ivey.
Aye.
It's unanimous.
I'm not going to be like you.
We're back on track with a unanimous vote. Yeah. I'll announce that. I might even,